Hey everyone, I'm Angela Lynn.
And I'm Jesse Lynn, and welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? This week, we're going to talk about what are the kids saying these days? And by kids, I mean Gen Z on TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok, so I'm literally going to have to go through Angela to understand what half of these things mean. But I feel like as I've gone up there in the age as an aging millennial, there's a more and more conversations that I hear when I go out where I'm just like, what is that? Or I've started working with some coworkers that are totally actually Gen Z, not like millennial cusp. And some of the things that they say in their email sign-offs and stuff, I'm just like, I've never heard of that before. I don't know what that is. And it's so funny how the lexicon is changing. And I still feel like I'm at this point where I'm not old enough where I'm literally like, what the fuck is that entirely? It's kind of like a Mad Lib, right? It's like Angela blanked to the store. And I'm like, I think I can guess what that means, but like I don't actually know what it means. And so I thought it would be fun to just have an episode where we just talk about like all of these new things, like the slang terms and the terminology and this like new world of like internet language that Gen Z have developed or evolved or built on top of in terms of what has already been circulating and like rolling around on the internet. And also for me to just feel like, I'm like an old fart now and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, I love it. It is definitely such an interesting topic. I think, though, I will caveat or add on to what you said. It's not just Gen Z, it's Gen Alpha, which is like such a fucking weird, it's such a
Hold
weird
up,
thing
what
to
is
say.
that?
It's the next one. It's the next one down.
Are they already here?
Yeah, they're already here. I know. I'm like, aren't you infants? No, they're like up. I don't know what age it goes up to right now. I know middle schoolers are like part of it, Gen Alpha. So they are old enough to like have opinions and such. So there's a whole new lexicon that is part of that group because you mentioned internet slang. The internet of it all, I think, is a big reason there's so much new stuff because if you think about slang in general, like that has existed throughout all of spoken language, I believe, but it is largely borrowed from things like pop culture references. And as you go back in time, like there were fewer and fewer places where pop culture existed because media wasn't necessarily like as widespread. But now we're in the full internet age where trends and like videos and just music and everything comes so fast that there can be trending words and like audio and whatever at any given second, and it moves so fast. So I think that's really where it comes from. There's nothing more central to pop culture now than the internet. Like the internet is where everything starts now. I looked up so many of these weird words that we're going to talk about today, and when I'm like trying to decipher where this crap is even coming from, so much of it is from TikTok. So the younger you get, like the more their like core primary channel is TikTok beginning. So why don't I first kick it to you? What words are like weird for you that maybe aren't that weird for me?
I already told you about skibidi toilet, which I heard of, but I had never investigated because I heard it was just some bizarre YouTube like video series and I was like, I don't have time to look at this. But then eventually I did look at it and I was like, this is so bizarre. Like if I was extremely stoned, I might find this amusing, but also mildly disturbing. So that's like one of them. Rizz, oh my God. So I have like friends on the cusp who are maybe like the latest millennial and the earliest Gen Z. And so they're like the ones that help me like understand some of the stuff. So Rizz was one of them, which made a lot of sense to me after my friend explained it to me. And he was like, oh, it stands for charisma. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I can intuit like all the things connected to the meaning of charisma when someone says rizz. Like you have a high level of like attractiveness or like je ne sais quoi or like whatever. Like I can like kind of like fill in the blank on that. Gen Z folks at work often sign on their work emails Happy Friday. I think I mentioned this to you, but Happy Friday Junior on Thursday to say like Happy Thursday instead of saying Happy Thursday. It doesn't need any translating. Like obviously like I get it. Like it's the day before Friday, but it's just a very interesting way to refer to it, where I'm like, where did that come from? And why are we referring to it that way? Because Thursday generally not that great for me.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I think there is a whole subset of words that I'm not privy to because I exited corporate America a few years ago. So nobody's writing emails to me saying Happy Friday, Junior, because why would they say that to me? I'm not in the office anymore. I think what's also interesting to me is I think a lot of it is hard to explain because none of these words just mean one thing. I almost feel like Gen Z and younger have a hard time using normal words and instead try to fit an entire experience, an entire moment or way of experiencing something into a word. So then when you ask them what does that even mean? They don't really know how to describe it, or they have to use multiple words to describe the one thing because it doesn't just mean one thing. Even rizz, you mentioned, right? And I only just before recording this found out that it comes from charisma, because the way that I was seeing it was not, because I think middle schoolers might use it slightly differently. They were using it as a noun or rizzer or something like that. But I was seeing it in these Gen Zers picking up girls. And they're rizz her right now. So they're using it like a verb. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And it took me many videos to understand they meant give her your best pickup line, essentially. Try to pick her up. And then today was the first time I heard it as a noun, which is oh no, you have lots of rizz. You have rizz or whatever. And I was like, what the? So you see, it's all these words don't have a singular meaning because they're trying to encapsulate a vibe. They're trying to encapsulate a feeling and an experience that you have to have experienced in some way to even know how to explain it. There's a lot of in crowd feeling to a lot of these words because you have to you either know or you don't, is a lot of the feeling I get with a lot of these words.
Yeah, and I also feel the usage of the word changes how people interact with it over time, where it might have been initially just a noun, but then over time, popularity of it makes it such that people are now using it as a verb and it takes on its own kind of life. And yeah, it's all of these things are super contextual. And I'm going to use a very, very old example, but in movies when people used to say shut up, you don't actually mean shut up. You're just no, oh my God, no way. Stop. That can't be true. But you could also literally be telling someone to shut up, please stop talking. The context of the conversation, your tonality, the way you intend it, it really affects how someone understands that particular phrase. And so it does kind of take on a life of its own.
Real You Mandarin's newest course, Real You Mandarin Self-Expression, gives you the confidence to navigate some of life's toughest conversations in Mandarin, covering expressing your feelings, interpersonal relationships, fertility and parenting, caring for aging parents, and self-growth. All lessons are videos of realistic dialogues, teaching you the most important vocabulary in context. Everything is available in both traditional and simplified Chinese, Pinyin, and English, with downloadable transcripts and digital flashcards. Try a free lesson on expressing happiness and positive emotions, and lock in early bird pricing on the course to save big. Plus, as a special thank you for being a listener of the pod, you'll get an extra 10% off with code WhereAreYouFrom10. Learn more at realumandarin.com. Hey listeners, wondering how you can support us? The biggest way is by increasing our visibility by following us on Instagram at WhereAreYouFromPod, on TikTok at But Where Are You Really From, subscribing to our YouTube channel under But Where Are You Really From Podcast, rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, and telling your friends. The more people we can get to listen to the show, the more we can continue spotlighting different perspectives and stories. And if you feel so inclined, we're also accepting donations at buymeacoffee.com/whereareyoufrom. Thanks, y'all. Yeah. And going back to something you said earlier about Happy Friday Junior or whatever being something no one had to explain to you, you understand, but is kind of why. You understand at the core where something is borrowing from, but there's a little bit where you're like, but why did it stretch into this new thing? So I think there are so many words like that when I was still in corporate and had those young millennial upper Gen Z people. Here's a good example of like, they don't always even know where it comes from. So like rip, for a while, everyone kept saying rip after everything. And the first few times I heard it, I was like, what the? So I was just like, what does rip mean? And they were like, and I'm like, are you saying like RIP? Like rest in peace? Like, and they were like, no. Oh, yeah, I guess. And I was like, what the fuck? Because yeah, I think they first tried to explain it. It's like, oh, it means it's like over. It's like so over. It's like done. It's whatever. And I'm like, so RIP, right? Like dead. And then they were like, oh, I guess you're right. I guess that's where it comes. I was like, bruh, you know, what? And so I'm seeing a lot of that kind of pattern in some of these words where it is coming from something real that most people can understand, but they're kind of changing it in some way. So today I just heard like aura, like someone has infinite aura, or you're gaining or losing aura points. Because we all know what aura, the normal word, means, right? Like people have different auras, they have different energy. If you take it into the spiritual realm, then it's like, you know, people who can see auras, there's like different color auras you might be giving off depending on the energy that you bring as a person, right? So that is like the normal version of aura, but in the way that they're using it now, it's kind of like describing someone with like cool energy or like big energy in that in a positive way. Like if we're bringing it to millennial terms, it's like a girl boss has like infinite aura, if you want to like translate into that way. So that energy of someone being like a boss bitch or whatever, right? So they've taken something that is understandable, but made it a very like specific definition of that is stretched like just a peg away from what the original thing is, so that when you learn what it means, you're like, oh, I guess, but that's like, why? Well, why did you have to twist it that way? So I feel like a lot of the words are just that one degree of way of like understandability.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I feel like this definition is adjacent to that, but maybe kind of the same thing with rip and kind of the same thing with rizz. It's a lot of what it isn't rather than what it is. Yeah, so there's all this like new internet culture, but one of the things that I kind of enjoy about it is that it feels really familiar to me. For me, the internet has always been this kind of like fun place, right? There are definitely parts of the internet which are horrendous, terrible, like breed just like awful things. But I like to think of the internet as like a giant playground, and that's always what it's been for me. And it's where I go to see people play and see people be creative and just do really the stupidest shit for no reason and like share it with people. And I think what I like about seeing this, even though I'm not a part of it, I still feel like there's this spirit of creativity, this spirit of like invention, of fun that exists on the internet that, to be honest, like a lot of the times is overshadowed by all of the other stuff that's going on, right? Like, oh, shitty news or hacking, or like how the internet is being used for bad purposes. And I just love the idea that there's still, for every generation, a powerful contingent of people that are continually like inventing new things for fun. So we talked about skibidi toilet. Like, I mean, obviously that's like an insane thing, unless someone one day figures out that it's like some kind of subliminal messaging. But it's just like really crazy video that someone put together for fun. That reminds me of stuff that we used to watch on like E-Bombs World or Newgrounds, where it's just like silly stuff that someone like did, and they were like, this is so dumb, but I had a really like a cackle and a hoot over it, and I'm gonna put it on the internet so everyone can see it. And I love that that spirit continues. And I do feel like there's a lot of things that if you watch it, you might hear from the creator that like it was never like spiritually the same thing as this old thing, but I feel like I can see some like level of continuity with some of the content that comes out. You know, it's irreverent, it doesn't take itself too seriously, it's not meant to do anything other than be like wacky, crazy, weird. And I think that that's what I love about it in terms of the spirit of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the internet has made everyone potentially a creator. So that, I mean, you just turn on your phone and you suddenly have access to like the entire internet as your audience potentially, because the internet is where randomness thrives. So like your most random thought, your most random and bizarre like dance you want to come up with, or like skit you want to come up with, and there's an audience for it. So it is fun to see that, and how like easy it is for people to show off their creativity nowadays. I think originally we were talking about this section as also the kind of cyclical pattern or ways of behaving that transcend the generations. And for me, like, because you mentioned something about like, oh, they claim things weren't originating from something else from like back in our day or whatever. But the reality is that trends are cyclical over and over again. Like whether you want to talk about just fashion or like every aspect of like pop culture, things come back in waves. Like I'll always remember when we were kids ourselves and like bell bottoms came back.
Baggy jeans are back.
Yeah, baggy jeans are now back. So it's just like everything comes in waves, and that's just fashion. But I think it's the same with pop culture in terms of like things people say and like things that people will do or think is cool. So like my favorite thing is seeing like very millennial shit get reboosted by Gen Z or younger. So like I just watched Will Smith and I already forgot, from Fresh Prince, but the little sister in Fresh Prince, that actress, they just did a dance, and it was like with some like very famous Gen Z TikToker or whatever, but the caption was like, waited 25 years for this dance to trend. And it was like, you know, the like little dance that they always do on, that Will Smith always does on Fresh Prince. And then I also watched a different video where it was like some other like TikToker who is in a bar and she runs into Joey Fatone, and it's like not me having Joey Fatone teach me the bye 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 dance. So it's like there's like a reverence for our generation or older, those kinds of things, but like making it fresh and relevant in their age as well. So I like seeing that like cycling of stuff, because it just shows like the things we thought were cool are still cool in some way, but it's almost like putting a different twist on it to keep it more relevant in today's time.
On that note, thank you, listeners, for joining us for another episode. We hope you found the topic interesting, whether you are a boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I don't think any Gen Alphas are listening to this, but we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on just this topic and the internet in general. And we'd also love to hear if you feel like from the conversation, you do think that our generations are closer or more alike than we like to think we are. Let us know in the comments below or wherever you're listening. And as always,
No, don't, because it's the last episode of this batch. And as always, don't come back. No, this is the last episode of this batch. We have a bit of a shorter batch than in previous times, but I think Jesse and I have come to terms with let's call it the future of the pod, which is just that we want to take the podcast where our energy still is. So with each batch now, we're basically only investing our time in episodes that we find genuinely interesting and that we have energy towards and have gravitation towards. So this batch was only 8. That's okay. Next batch, we'll see what we come up with. But if you miss us, listen back to our old episodes and we'll be back. We'll let you know when we're back for the next batch. But until next time, 再见, bitches.